viewers, welcome. My name is Eliana. If you're new to my channel, welcome. This is the final video of the Pick Me series that I've been doing. And so the purpose of me speaking about this is because I really wanted to make a distinction between women who are truly feminine, who are striving to be cooperative, submissive, and they want to come under the authority of a righteous man. I really want to make the distinction between those women and the pick me woman, because I saw that there was like some mislabeling happening where those who didn't really fit the term and who are actually striving to be righteous are getting that label of pick me. And so if you haven't seen the rest of the videos, I definitely would advise you to definitely go back and listen. I've done 5 so far. This is the 6th video. The first video I pre-recorded, and then the rest of the videos I did live. So the first video in the series is called The Pick Me Lie, What Righteous Women Need to Know. The second one was Are You Ready to Be Chosen? The third one was Prepared to Be Covered, What Righteous Men Are Looking For. The fourth one was The Power of Respecting a Righteous Man. And the 5th one was Stop Letting Unaccountable Women Shame You Out of a Righteous Religionist Household. And in this video is the conversation is going to end here, and I'm going to just be speaking to the root of it all. And if I haven't made that distinction clear between what's a pick me and what's a righteous woman, I'm definitely going to drive that point home in this video. So I will start off by saying that there is some legitimacy in terms of what the term actually means and the type of woman that it describes. And it describes women who have abandoned their standards, who tolerated mistreatment and abuse for male approval. So the first point that I just wanted to point out, and I took a lot of time to really write out what I really wanted to say, because I may be hitting some sensitive topics, and I just want to be sensitive to the fact that there are women who are truly pick me women, and they're broken. So that's the main point. I want to speak about this brokenness. And I've noticed that the women who are speaking against this whole pick me, their concern is women being taken advantage of, women being exploited, and they may have had their own experiences in trying to warn other women not to go down the same path that they did. And so I just want to, share some differences between the pick me woman versus the submissive woman who desires a righteous covering. So a woman who desires love because she has never experienced love before, that's a pick me, sort of personality, versus a woman who is desiring love because she knows that she's deserving of it, she knows her value, and she knows her worth. That's a difference, subtle difference, but a big difference. Also, we have a woman tolerating abuse. That is not the same as a woman who's willing to build under a righteous leadership. Also, another distinction, we have the pick me woman who abandons herself and has no standards. But we have the woman who is submissive, who values herself enough to want to be chosen by a good man. Okay, and we also have the pick me who sacrifices losing herself versus the woman who knows her worth to know exactly the type of man that she needs to submit to. Big difference. You have one who is controlled, where women say oh, don't let yourself be controlled by this man. You have that dynamic with the pick me woman. She allows herself to just be controlled by a man that doesn't have good intentions. But you have that versus a submissive woman who was able to pick a righteous man and has chosen to submit to that leadership. Big difference. One, the sister is she's broken, so she's picking unrighteous men. And she's also unrighteous, which I'm going to get into in the second point. They're both unrighteous. They're both broken. We're speaking about broken men and women. but you have the righteous woman who is building with a righteous man, and that is completely different. Okay, that woman is choosing to submit. She's not being influenced or being controlled. It's very different, and we get it confused. All right, and also we have the pygmy woman who tolerates abuse versus the righteous woman who is able to forgive. Forgiveness is a very spiritual and very you have to have a lot of strength. A lot of you have to have done a lot of healing to be able to forgive. It takes a certain type of person, a certain type of heart to be able to forgive others. And so it's in scripture that we should forgive. It's in the Lord's Prayer that we should forgive, if we want to be forgiven. And so for a woman who is choosing to forgive a man that she's decided to submit to, that is an honorable thing to stay committed to something that you decide to submit yourself to, versus a woman who is just tolerating all sorts of abuse. Okay? Very big difference. And those are some of the differences. I'm distinguishing between the two. And so I'm going to move into unrighteousness. And I hear women who speak about pygmy women. They somebody had mentioned that they are very easy and that they have no standards. That is correct. And which, when you look at someone who doesn't have a standard, they don't have a moral compass, they're unrighteous, right? If you don't have any standard, then it's like, what are you falling back on? What sort of principles are you falling back on? There are none. There isn't any standard that's saying okay, I'm going to stand for this because this is right. So you have an unrighteous woman who never developed discernment of what a righteous man is because she doesn't live a righteous culture. So it's how can you even know what a righteous man is if you haven't been taught, right? If you haven't really been taught and you haven't lived inside of a culture to be able to see the difference, because there is a difference between an unrighteous man and a righteous man. And you have two men and they both have masculine qualities naturally, but you have one who women confused qualities that are in a righteous man and say, oh, that's control. For example, they confuse leadership or protection, men protecting their household and protecting the women around them. They'll take that and say oh, that's controlling. So they're confusing what a righteous man does naturally with what an unrighteous man does, which is control. So it's you have to have that discernment, and you get that discernment by being a part of a righteous community, being a part of a righteous culture. That's the only way that you're going to be able to distinguish between what a righteous man is and what an unrighteous man is. But so many women, because they don't have that knowledge, they confuse the two. They don't know which one they're looking at. And they lump men who are truly masculine, walking with strength. They'll sometimes label them even as misogynists when it's oh, wrong label. So it happens so often. But this pygmy stereotype is built around, like I said, broken men and broken women. And weak women, they tolerate anything to keep a man. And an unrighteous man, he will exploit that because he likes the fact that a woman has chosen to submit to him. And it's so sad. It's so sad because both are broken. I've noticed that women who are trying to help women, they're advocating for the pygmy woman, don't fall into the trap, and they conclude that a woman who wants to be cooperative is dangerous. It's dangerous because of the trauma. It's based off of women being exploited, their experiences with being taken advantage of, and they're trying to protect themselves. There's this defense mechanism. They're trying to protect themselves from being taken advantage of. In doing that, trying to protect themselves from broken men, they're also blocking righteous women from getting with righteous men, and is causing confusion. This defense mechanism that's in place, it tells women, don't follow that man. Don't follow. You don't need to be covered. follow your career, focus on your career. The purpose is to block you from being hurt, but as women, we are the weaker vessel, and we have to be, we need protection. And you may have some women that say, oh, I don't need the protection of a man. Well, when you have an emergency, when you have a true emergency, who do you call? You know, you pick up and call those 3 numbers. The first number starts with a 9, ends with a 1. You call law enforcement so someone can enforce some law, so someone can enforce some righteousness. So all women who are in danger, who at some point who may seek protection, they do seek that from the structure that's been created by men. So we, instead of running from that need for protection from men, instead of running from it, we just have to cultivate our discernment to be able to discern, like, okay, this is the man that I'm going to pick, and this is the one I'm going to submit to, and this is the one I'm choosing that I'm going to go to them for protection. And I'm choosing to submit and say, like, if I'm in danger, this person has veto, this person has power of attorney to be able to come in and protect me however they see fit. You know, that's the space that we need to be in as a woman who is not broken, as a woman who is whole, and really honoring her femininity and knowing, like, I need to be covered. A lot of this pain and hurt has been caused, like a lot of, you know, pick-me women getting hurt and being taken advantage of is because they were not protected. So the very protection that we need as women, we are now, like, because we've been hurt, we are now, like, fighting against, like, being protected even by righteous men. We're calling them controlling when they're not being controlling, they're trying to protect. You know, and that's something that's natural inside of them. And so it's like it's really damaging. It's really damaging because it's sad too, because it's like the hurt and pain it has caused, you know, women to say, like, hey, like, all these negative experiences with these broken men. But as a woman, we have to, you know, heal ourselves. And like I said, a lot of times, a lot of this happened because we were uncovered. We were never meant to be uncovered. We were always supposed to be covered by a righteous man. If we lived in a world that wasn't so wicked and out of control, let's say we lived in society, and what I'm advocating is, like, I'm advocating the righteous culture that our ancestors lived, because when we were functioning in that, all the women were covered, and any woman that wasn't covered, she was in danger, or something happened. Maybe it was like she was in war, or something dangerous has happened that caused that woman to not be covered anymore. But every single woman was supposed to be covered. That was a part of the culture. Those women, out of their fear and pain and their fear of trusting men, are telling other women not to trust. But it's like, no, you need to develop your discernment. It's not about not trusting. Develop your discernment. So that concludes this topic on the pick-me. You know, if you are a pick-me woman, or you have been a pick-me before in the past, share your thoughts in terms of the importance of being able to discern, because I didn't hear any sister that was advocating, who were speaking against the pick-me women, or trying to help the pick-me women. I didn't hear any of them mention that the men were righteous, and that women were tricked by righteous. It was always about men who were cheating on them, who were taking advantage of them, doing something that was totally, you know, wrong and wicked. But wouldn't that all have been prevented if we all had discernment of what a righteous man is? And it goes deeper than that as well, because it's really not that. It's really the culture that we live in. We live in a culture that is a culture based in wickedness. That's not based in righteousness. You know, that's my personal opinion, that the Western culture is not a culture that has a particular people's best interest at heart. And that's why the women who became pygmies and who are out here being taken advantage of and who are out here unprotected and advocating for women to stay unprotected, that's why that is the case, because someone has convinced you and told you that they defined what a man was for you. They throw like movies in your face, and they're pushing this agenda of these men are bad, these men are evil. And it's not that. It's just that we live in a world where people are wicked, people are evil, people are living unrighteously. Because there's not a righteous culture. If there was a righteous culture, you wouldn't have people acting wickedly. You wouldn't have all this brokenness. There are certain pieces that are missing, and that's why people are broken, men and women. Because there are pieces that are missing from the culture that these people have chosen to live. So I feel for the pygmy, and I can even say that I was one, at a certain point in my life as well. But it doesn't mean that we throw our femininity out and we put on this tough masculine armor because we've been hurt. It's just like, no, just recognize that, you know what, I'm gonna have to select this. That's why I'm doing this video series, because you really have to find a righteous culture. That's the solution. You have to find a righteous community, a righteous culture that's filled with righteous men and women who are striving. That's what you have to do. That's the solution. At the end of the day, that's the solution. And so you have men you have a covering, a righteous covering that is able to protect you, and you don't have to worry about being exploited. As simple as that. You don't have to worry about that. So that concludes this video. I will that it was helpful, and that you gained something out of it. So this was a pleasure, sharing on this topic, and I really thought, on all the points that I shared to bring forth to help, sisters to understand, a bit better. So peace.